session is going to be in 2 parts. Okay, so I just keep everyone happy anyway. We've got a lovely box that people would have got for the McConnell's tasting. So we've been very lucky. We're doing a wee bit of a breakdown for McConnell's.
Can you hear me? This is John.
Oh, yes, John. Yeah, we haven't.
John, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Hey, Paul, how's it going?
Very good, John. Thank you very much. I know I can't see you, but I can definitely hear you.
I'm excited to be here, even if I'm in cyberspace, but I'm here. I can see you.
Good, man. Good. Excellent.
Yeah.
This is what we've got. We've got packs that went out. John, you might not have seen them anyway, but we've got packs that went out with 9 different liquids in the box. We've got 9 liquids in the box, and we've got 2 glasses. There's a really nice bit of presentation kit that went out. Now, the first 4 liquids in the box are numbered 1, 2, 3, and 4, and numbers 1 and 2 are a breakdown. So we've deconstructed the blend. So we've looked at the single grain and we've looked at the single malt, which is the 2 parts of the blend, and that's what we've got to taste to start with, and then we've got the McConnell's 5-year-old as number 3, and then we move on to something a little bit special as number 4, and then we've got some cocktails to make. So we've actually got some guys coming in to present the cocktails, and around 7 o'clock tonight. So we're going to try and get the whiskies done first, and then at 7 o'clock we're going to be taken over by a TV channel here, an online TV channel here in Belfast, who are going to take over the running of the cocktails and have a bit of humour, a bit of crack, something about to talk about the whiskey and the cocktails. So we've been lucky. We've partnered ourselves up with Papa's Ginger Wines, Cordials from Northern Ireland, a guy called Wayne Adair, who also owns Longbridge. Really impressed with the products, local products, and Wayne has. I would have loved to have used his ginger beer, but because it's fizzy, I don't think it would have travelled well. So we used the Cordial instead to make a small cocktail with ginger ale, and lemon. So if you've got to hand in your house and you want to make some cocktails after this, then all you need is ice. And for this, for the Cordial, you just need some lemon, like a slice of lemon or a little bit of lemon juice. And then for the second cocktail, all you need is ice. And we've done that in partnership with Number 7 Street, based down in Newry, who've made a specific cocktail literally only for McConnell's whiskey on my behalf, on my bequest, and I told them what ingredients to use, but they made a good cocktail. So we're going to start off with the first whiskey, which is in the whiskey pack. All right, we're going to start off with number 1, and number 1 is single grain. It's an 8-year-old single grain. Okay, it's something that most people don't normally drink. We're not really grain drinkers in Northern Ireland or indeed Ireland, and across the world, grain whiskey has a slightly strange connotation with it. You know, it's mainly used for blends, and it's just like it's deemed as a blend whiskey, and it's not, you know, a component part, so it's not really explored a lot. I think it's overlooked, and I think actually one of the biggest parts about our blends is that grain content, and it's the robustness of the grain content. It's the great smooth bourbon taste that we're going to get, from the barrels that are used. So you guys have picked, the guys at McConnell's have picked a great single grain to work with. So we're going to crack that open. Okay, we're going to take a wee shot of it. I'm just going to make myself a wee drink, if I can. 2 seconds. And we're just going to talk about this just for a moment. And I think this is good that we can break this down and we can talk about the blend itself. So when we talk about the grain, okay, it's nice light in colour, okay, very, very, very sweet on the nose, okay. Oh, and I just got it in my eye, which is great because that's what alcohol should belong to. But that's just lovely. So vanilla. I mean, I'm hoping we're going to get this, but it's going to be vanilla. Utilising those bourbon casks. Keith's back in the room, which is good. So, Keith, we're just on number 1, which is the single grain component of the blend. And I just think this is really important that people understand the complexity of the blend itself. A lot of people, when we talk about blends, we don't really think about the component parts. And we maybe don't think of the barrel influences. We don't maybe think about those things. Lots of blends are just used for back bars, or used for highballs. I tend to think, and John, we've tasted your whiskey at different events. I've used it at different tastings. But the lovely bourbon nose on it, indeed, David Mackay, 100%. It really is, and I want people to really talk about this. The grain, the grain component, which makes this whiskey so good, the blend so good, it's coming from that cask influence. It's coming from the age, and I know that we're dealing with a 5-year-old blend, which stands out. John, if I can be rude, it stands out from the crowd, doesn't it? It stands out from the crowd. You've got a big, bold bottle, and I should have brought one with me today, but I think I've had that discussion already today that I'm not where I'm meant to be. So I'm not where I'm meant to be because my laptop broke. So I'm somewhere else, and actually I would have had the bottle of the McConnell's with me. But it's a stunning big bottle. It's a stunning big, chunky bottle. That beautiful green crest with the harp on it. Those beautiful images that talk about the history of McConnell's, and for the fact that it is the oldest whiskey branding in Northern Ireland. It's you can tell that because it's got that it's got that live forever kind of logo feel to it. So I appreciate that. It stands well, when you put it next to another brand. And we could name them and shame them, but when you put it next to other brands on the shelves behind bars, it stands out. It's a big crowd pleaser. But no, I am a fan of the component parts, and I think this is important. So I want people to talk about it. I want people to think about it, and there's no harm in coming on here and having a wee chat about it. And I know that Keith is well versed in talking about the component parts, but so are you, John. So we're I'm going to use you since how Keith is here, and I can't see you, but it's good to hear you.
I'm here.
I mean, John. I mean, what do you make? I mean, look. First of all, as I say, we've used McConnell's in different tastings, and we've used we've done some side by side stuff. There's some guys in the chat that I know we've done side by side when we've broken it down. We've done that. It's just a good way to discuss the blend. What do you make of the grain? What's your thoughts on the grain?
Well, look, I agree with you, Paul, very much that grain, for whatever reason, is kind of seen as the poorer cousin in terms of Irish whiskies. But to me, it's the backbone of so many whiskies that we drink every day. And it's really the piece that, pulls everything else together. So it's the canvas that we draw on, if you like.
Yeah.
And when we add in whatever amount of malt we do add in, or pot, or whatever else it is we add in, then we end up with this wonderful painting. But to me, the McConnell's blend is, uses grain as a hero. We're roughly 75-25. I think we're 76-24 between grain and malt, and are not ashamed to say that, because what we end up with is a really delicious blend of whiskey that's very pleasant to drink, easy drinking, and yet complex enough that, okay, if you're an entry-level drinker, you'll probably find it easy. But if you've drunk whiskey all your life and you're looking for something challenging, you'll still find elements within McConnell's, because the grain is so good that you find it quite pleasant. So I would say I'm a big supporter of grain, and I believe that it plays a really important role. In this one, the grain is particularly sweet, and you get a lot of notes that are coming through, like caramel and vanilla, which is basically coming from the sherry cask and the American oak. So when you put the two together, it's mostly American oak as opposed to sherry, but you do get this lovely vanilla flavor. So I think it works really well. This particular one that you've used is an 8-year-old grain, which I think is just stunning.
Yeah, it is. Do you know what? I mean, and Gareth, I think Gareth has made a point here. Green ore used to be everywhere in Belfast when he got into whiskies, and he loved it then. Has progressed to more complex taste, but it's still a great base. But now we know what's happened. Some of these distilleries have stopped producing. Stop selling, maybe is the better word. Stop selling under certain brandings. But the green ore branding, really brought to everyone's taste buds the idea of single grain, the idea of Irish single grain, and it being accessible and pushed. And that is, and what made it so good is that single grain can be really difficult to drink on its own, depending on what it's being used for, how long it's been aged for. And actually, the 8-year-old is just right. It's robust. It's got plenty of character. It has all that natural sugars coming directly from those casks and from those barrels. Lovely sweetness. Really, that vanilla, that is major vanilla notes on it. And I genuinely do think that we've missed a trick, that Ireland had a really good run of good grain whiskey that could have been continued, and probably it should have had its own market. And there's been a couple of people who have reintroduced grain whiskey with Hyde. Did a couple. Obviously, Quebec have now taken over obviously the branding as well from Greenore. But you've also got, there's a couple of local guys who've come up with the grain, either cast strengths or putting out the age statements. And I think that takes a little bit of maturity to do that, because it's not something that everyone runs away and picks up off the shelf. But when these bottles come out, Greenore was priced in around about 30 quid, no more. You'd buy an 8-year-old for about £30. It's all gone. So now we're in secondary market stuff, and actually it's difficult to pick anything up for anything close to 80 quid, 90 quid, because actually it's the liquid inside. It's not that it's collectible. It's just that it's one of the best. It's definitely one of the best single grains ever produced in Ireland, and that's quite clear.
Yeah.
And so you've got it there in front of you. That nose, the nose is just.
Yeah, that's a stunning whiskey.
We've got vanilla, we've got citrus, we've got those apples that we're expecting from that distillery. Apples, those crisp green apple notes that we're going to get there. And yeah, it's just lovely. It's a delightful taste. I would like anyone who's tasted Greenore 8, or anyone who's got it just now in the pack, to tell me otherwise, because I've never heard a bad word said about it. And I think that's why it's important to use it in this context, in this tasting. We're talking about something very, very positive as part of the component blend.
I think part of it, Paul, is the reason that grain may have had a lesser reputation over the years was it was considered as a less expensive component in whiskies, and therefore people said, if it costs less, it can't be as good. But I don't buy that personally. I think that just because it costs less, because it's a continuous process, doesn't necessarily mean it's not as good. I'm not saying that it's better, but it has its place. And if you're a whiskey lover, there are so many different options for you, to try. And this is one, and it's very pleasant. And if you think about the occasion that you use the whiskey, to me, is what's critical. So this has an occasion, and it's a light whiskey, and it's almost a celebratory whiskey, an early in the day whiskey. I saw a comment earlier about a 3 p.m. whiskey. This might be a 3 p.m. whiskey.
It certainly could be. And there's a couple of comments here, John, and I'm sure you're seeing them as well. But Paul Toohey is saying that it's a really, really nice subtle sweetness that lifts into the citrus. I 100% agree with that.
100%, yeah.
Conor Miles is saying it's a fantastic dram. It is a fantastic dram, but it has its place. It definitely has its place in the whiskey world. And look, we've got cast iron whiskies, malt whiskies, those. The grain's important. The grain is very important. But if you were to look in Scotland, if you look at a 25-year-old single grain, compare it to a 25-year-old single malt in Scotland, the price comparison is huge. We could be picking up 25-year-old to 40-year-old single grains in Scotland for close to maybe £100, maybe £120.
Yeah.
But the malt comparison, we're going to times that by 10. We're going to be up into the thousands, for something similar of similar age from similar years. And I think that it's kind of sad, because the brands and the distilleries who rely heavily on their blends to make them commercial rely heavily on grain whiskey. And that grain whiskey needs to be celebrated in some respect. So I thought tonight, it was important that we're going to, we want to see McConnell's doing well. We want to see the McConnell's putting their stamp back into Belfast. This is Belfast Whisky Week. It belongs in this festival. And I just think it's given credence to the component parts. It'd be nice to, be nice to reflect a little bit on the grain.
Yeah.
But look, the next part of it is we're moving on to the malt. So we're looking at at this point we're looking at a non-age statement, single malt that we're using, and again it's the component part of the blend. So I'm just going to give myself a wee glass of that. Give me a second. And I think this is interesting because we're used to this. We're used to the big kind of crisp green apple. This crisp kind of citrusy fruit going on here. And this is the when we actually taste your blend, John, we get this. This is very. I mean, this in the grain. Actually, if you've got a tongue with the right kind of taste buds, you're going to get these component parts filling your mouth. And that's what we want to see. I want people to get that. So we've got some comments here. Peter Morris says, I tasted from the still what was to then become the Green 08 world-class whiskey and really didn't need 8 years in barrel. So he's 100%. The whiskey, the Green or whiskey coming off doesn't need 8 years, but it got 8 years, and that those vanilla notes coming directly from the cask have made it. Glenfarclas 25, I still can't get for under £100. Someone's saying, yeah.
That's a good deal.
Fair enough, Jason. Alistair's saying, lovely nose, soft, sweet, and fruit notes. Also mealy. Reminds me of feeding the chickens on the farm in my childhood. That's a good thing, by the way, is what he's saying. So yeah, and rightly so. It is. This is great. This is, for a comparable between the grain and the malt. This is interesting. We just dealt with an 8-year-old single grain. We're now doing a non-age statement single malt, which is probably in around that kind of age bracket anyway. It's going to be in around that kind of age bracket. And I think what we're getting from that is it's robust enough. But actually, I mean, is the we're on number 2, Johnny. Is the single grain a little bit better? Is the single grain a little bit better than the malt? Which is interesting because then we're talking about the large percentage of grain to malt ratio in the blend, and what is making it better? What's making the blend stand out?
Well, Paul, if I can jump in there for a second.
Yeah.
I think it's a really interesting comparison because that 8-year-old grain is just fantastic, right? And this is a non-aged malt.
Yeah.
And it's a much heavier, at least on the nose and early in the palate, heavier whiskey.
Yeah.
I would say that there's much different influences there. You can really taste very, very different flavors coming through in the malt. And there's a dryness that you're getting from the cask. I think you almost have tannins in that malt that you don't have in the grain.
Yes.
It's kind of grippy on the mouth, and it's a very, very different proposition. So it's like, think about, music and different components of a great song. When you put everything together, it just is incredible. And if you listen to each little piece on its own, it's fine. But then you put them all together, and suddenly you're blown away, and the hair stands up on the back of your head. So it's a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, you're totally right. We've got guitar, guitar strumming through there, and all of a sudden we've got a drum coming in, and that's what these blends are about. It's about taking those great, because they are on their own, they can be very good. It's taking that and it's about successfully merging them together and creating something that's quite harmonious. Totally agree with that. That's quite clear. So I like that. And again, I would like to know if anyone is disagreeing with that. If anyone's thinking, no, that's just not right. That's just not for me. I think it's not. I'm not fussed about whether or not people like these individual component parts directly. I'm convinced that blends are. blends can have stories, and let's be honest, John. There's a great story to tell about McConnell's, the backwater story that people have about their brands and about their where they're coming from and what they want to be. And I think this is important. The McConnell's is quite specific. Am I right in saying that McConnell's knows where it's been?
Yeah,
and it knows its heritage. Yeah, but it's also quite clear in saying this is what we expect now. We want to go. We want to take this brand. We want to use this brand. We want to make this brand belong. Take it back to Belfast. Make it a Belfast brand that people can identify with at the moment. And it's that is. Am I right in saying, John? It's now reverberating around the world. That it's starting to, track. We're selling cases of this in the States. Am I right?
Yeah, I think 100% what you're saying is right. Look, you talked earlier about the bottle and the packaging and the magnificent label, which, by the way, the inspiration for that was 100% the label that existed in 1925 when we effectively went out of business. And we had to make some changes and we had to tweak it a little bit for the modern world that we live in. But essentially, it's the same label that we had then.
Yeah.
And all of the, if you like, the provenance has been held on to. What is different, obviously, is we're now a blend. We used to be, McConnell's historically was a pot still whiskey.
Yes.
But the world has changed and people like blends. And so we brought a whiskey back that would be appealing to a broader base of consumers. And, as we go forward, we will bring more interesting, if you want to call them that word, malts and hopefully pot stills back to the world. But that's down the road. I think the nice thing about McConnell's is there's a wonderful history to the brand that we want to tap into. And there's a very interesting future that we want to be a part of. And it's really about marrying those two things, the old and the new, not losing what was great about McConnell's historically, but also, trying to be part of what can be great going forward. So we're marrying two things. But really, to me, it's all about Belfast. This whiskey is about Belfast. We will produce the whiskey in Belfast in the future. We're in the process of trying to get the distillery set up. These things take a little time, but we're nearly there, which is really exciting. And pretty soon, people will be able to come and see McConnell's, the distillery in Belfast, and that's going to be super exciting. And so, there's a lovely, lovely history and a great future. So.
I think you're just right, John. I mean, I think if we're going to, if I can speak candidly about the projects, look, the project's the whiskey just now, and that's what's very important. That we talk about the McConnell's, the whiskey, and we talk about what it wants, the future of it, and it's about, what have we got, and again, look, I hope people understand that, running Belfast Whisky Club and now obviously running Belfast Whisky Week as a festival. I don't work for any distillery, and I hope people understand that. I don't work for anyone. No one pays me to say something, and that's quite important. I don't take, and I've never have taken money from someone to talk about something. I'm sure there's a lot of guys out there. I'm sure there's a lot of bloggers, a lot of influencers, loads of people. They love it. I mean, they love taking money from people, right? But very honest, John. Somebody be very honest, and I think that at the moment in Northern Ireland specific, a little bit different in the south, but Northern Ireland, we've got some, great, up and coming distilleries. Distilleries are putting their mark, and and they're creating their own product. We've got Cologne doing something special there. We've got Ecklenville, doing their thing there. And then we've got we've got the likes of Copeland starting to do their stuff. We've got Redmond Estate. There's so many of these up and coming distilleries.
Yeah.
But then you've also got, let's remember this, we've got stalwarts. We've got Bushmill, who've been sitting there for so long, for a long, long time.
Yeah.
Who need to, I suppose they need to evolve a little bit as well. They can't just stand by and watch all, the rest of the world right up around them. They can't do that. But it's great. You've got a great position here just now, to use all the branding that you have, to use this idea of having blends that stand out. Because what's the main? I mean, if I'm going to just be frank, what's the main competitor for the blend? For the blend in Northern Ireland, the competitor is Bushmills and the competitor is Jameson.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I would like to think that, your blend, well, I mean, but as a blend behind the bar, Cologne don't have that ready yet.
Yeah.
The other, Dumplings have, blends, and they have some crackers, and again, it's about, there's the competition. We've got Jameson, we've got Bushmills, we've got the Dunville's brand now through Ecklenville. That's the competition. So McConnell's can sit behind a bar, I think, readily, easily, because actually, Northern Ireland, that's where it is, and in Belfast, that's where it should be.
Yeah. Well, look, Paul, I couldn't agree more. Like, from your lips to God's ears, absolutely. So I agree with you, but I think we all have a role to play, and the beauty for me is that there are such phenomenal whiskies now being developed and produced in Northern Ireland, and that's really going to be brilliant for the future. So McConnell's will take its place, and it will have a place.
Yes.
The work that the other people that you mentioned are doing is incredible, and I raise my hat to them. There's just some fantastic whiskey being made and some great work. So all of us together are helping the category, which is great news. I mean, we compete like hell on the shelf, but we should cooperate as much as we can to develop the category and to develop awareness of these beautiful whiskies.
Do you know what, John? Do you know what? That's a breath of fresh air when people talk like that, John, because that's what people need to hear. They want to hear that. I think that's very important that we talk like that, because that is exactly what we want. I'm convinced that we have so much going on in all that, which is just creating that platform for there to be a resurgence. And the biggest thing about Belfast Whisky Week is bringing whiskey back to Belfast. If that's telling people that message, the festival is about bringing whiskey back to Belfast. So when there's this much whiskey and the involvement in all these different distilleries now, I can list off at least 3 or 4 different projects that are on the go that are, there's embargoes on about people not talking about it because people can't talk about it because. But it's so exciting to know that at the moment, we're going to have probably 7 distilleries in County Down in operation by the end of 2022. And if we've got in County Antrim another 4 or 5 distilleries in operation by the end of 2023, what does that say about Northern Ireland? That's going to, it's just great. It's the resurgence. And Belfast, I want that to integrate backwards. So it's great to see brands specifically, but distilleries wanting to use Belfast as a base for their brands, and that they McConnell's is a Belfast whiskey. That we say, and again, looking at the handshake down the road, that we've got Dunville's is a Belfast brand. These are facts. That's what they belong to. They belong to the city. So we want to see that. We want to see more of that. But we'll move on, John. I think we're going to move on then just to the blend itself. I'm just going to sort that out. Give me 1 second. Bear with me just now. I'm just going to pour mine.
McConnell's Irish Whiskey. A very old whiskey gets a vibrant new life. Established in 1776, McConnell's opened their Belfast distillery where they crafted the first recorded Northern Irish whiskey brand. It's all in the blend. Aged for 5 years in ex-bourbon barrels, notes of citrus, peppered spice and vanilla undertones. Today, the legendary McConnell's brand has been revived, a robust, silky smooth whiskey soon to come back home to the city of Belfast.
Absolutely perfect to take it straight into the blend itself, So it's number 3 in the pack. So if everyone's got that, just make sure it's number 3. Yeah, number 3. So it's a 5-year finisher. We're at 42%. Okay. And do you know what? I remember when McConnell's when you guys launched your product in Belfast, and it was a great, to be frank, great launch. I'm very humbled, very humbled that you chose to work with the Belfast Whisky Club for that to happen. So thank you very much for that. But what I would also say is the pub crawl that we all went on, which was absolutely delightful. And those that missed out the pub crawl, God love you. But those that came along would understand that, that I actually drank the entire night nothing but McConnell's. I don't think I drank. The other things were on the go. I think there was other things on the go, so there was. And I used, actually, when some of the bars went into it, I went, listen, give me McConnell's and a cocktail. Give me it in this. Because I wanted to taste how robust it could be. Because it's a blend. I wanted to see how robust it could be standing up against other types of, whiskies within some of the cocktails. And so I did that, and I was very impressed. But one of the things I said was, what can it stand up against? And I picked a couple of blends that we are accustomed to, that we are go-to blends for barman, go-to blends for just the average, punter in a bar or a pub. And you know what? I was very honest at the time, and I think I spoke to yourself and some of the other representatives from the company, and I made it quite clear that it stood up, it 100% stood up against its competitors. And whether or not it is that extra bit of age or whether or not it's that extra bit of alcohol, I don't know. But it's complex. And I think that's why we broke this down. I think that's why when we have to talk about the grain component, and we have to talk about the malt component, it is the complexity of flavours. Certainly the barrel influences are very important here. And I think that actually the blend, and I want people to really come in and talk to me about this. You know what I mean? But it's for me, it's really good. I know people are now talking about the pub crawl and stuff, but it's really important that people talk about this blend and for what it is, because it is very it's very complex. Blends sometimes can be really boring and really not really involve you as much. It just happens to be the blend of choice, and it happens to be the blend that a barman picks for your drink. I'm convinced that when we use this blend, first of all, I can drink this on its own neat. I don't need it to be a highball. I don't need it to be a cocktail. I can drink this, and it's very accepting. And not only that, I've scored it, and people can look at my scores are public within the group. I've scored it previously, and I think it's not a malt. It's not a single malt. It's not an aged single malt. It should be scored with the competitors, its competitors, and people, whiskies around it, and it sits quite highly on. I think probably the highest. I'll give or take one or two the high end blends from Scotland that I've tasted, but it definitely sits highly on a blend. In terms of its scores for me and where it sits. And it's not about scoring, but for me, it's good to judge against its competitors. So, without naming names, I see this working, and I see it working for me. I want to know what other people think. I know that people have commented previously on this Carl Single Malt. But I want to know what people's thoughts are on this. I mean, John, I could talk about all day about it. And there's a lot of whiskies I can do that about. John, give me 1 second, John. We have another John here in the room who I'm bunking up with at the moment.
I apologise.
And he wants to say something.
You put your finger out to stop me from talking. I think this is amazing, as this goes against a lot of single malts that are coming out of Ireland right now.
There you go.
You're talking about it as a blend. I'm just it as a malt.
Right.
This is something I would go with as a drink that I can drink with. So.
No, that's fair. Like you heard it. I was telling him to shut up. I just didn't want him to speak, and I was like, no talking just now, because I wanted to say some stuff, but John, that's John's opinion, and I think that says it all. I know there's going to be people in the group who have stuff to say, you know what I mean, and want to talk about it. But John, I think you should be proud. I think the behind the brand should be proud. And I know there's a lot of work that's gone into it. And hopefully we're going to see post-COVID. We're going to see it now. Coming into our bars, coming into our off licenses is something that we can. Do you know what? It's a lovely centerpiece, and I do mean that. The bottle, and I'm really, Can one of my most amazing admin staff try and bring up that bottle again? I know we saw it in the video, but even like a link to it. I mean, John, do you sell through Irish malts?
We were just about to go online with them. You'll
That's good. That's good. So, look, I mean,
Master Malt, we're also in.
Master Malt, yeah. Master Malt, yeah. And I think that's good for those in Northern Ireland because that comes next day delivery, which is really good for Master Malt. They've been smashing to work with. I've worked with Master Malt for years getting my whiskey from Master Malt. They always do me a good turn, which is really good. But no, I think, and again, look, we talked about price points for your bottle. I think it's right. I don't think, you know what, and again, I can be very honest. I think it's just right. I don't think it's. I don't think there's maneuvering there.
I think it's cheap.
John thinks it's cheap. There, John. John says ignore him.
It's a highly competitive market, so you have to be priced at a point with a blend where people will actually buy it. So we are competing with blends. We are competing with malts, and so you got to be priced for the consumer. There's a question there about is there a sherry component to McConnell's? There is by default, just because a small amount of the whiskey was aged in sherry, but it just comes through nicely. This is what, like the symphony I talked about earlier, about you add the two pieces together and you get 1 and 1 is 4. So there are two major components here, but you end up with a relatively complex blend.
So, who are you selling to?
John, that's a question here from John. John is asking the question, who are you selling this product to? Who do you want to be the buyer of this product?
Yeah, this is a consumer who likes Irish whiskey, is looking for something different, more interesting, probably a little bit more challenging in terms of a standard blend, and wants to move up from the entry-level Irish whiskey blends into a more complex blend that's a little bit richer in flavor, and is a logical next step for people who are moving towards, malt whiskies and the complexity of phenomenal Scotch and Irish whiskies at the very higher end. So it's at the early level of someone's journey in whiskey, but it's beyond the entry-level blends. And
I would say,
sorry?
This is entry blend, because the whiskey that I'm tasting now is a quality whiskey. I don't judge whether it's a blend or single malt. I judge it on the whiskey itself.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Well, I'm really happy with the whiskey.
You're almost saying blend is a step down.
Yeah, so I think John's saying, actually, I mean, me personally, I'm saying, look, it's hard for me directly to make comparisons without looking at it at the exact neighbour next to it on the shelf. But I think that John is saying, I was like, oh, hold on. He tends to think that this is going like, this could compete against single malts directly, which is really interesting. Yeah, that's very important. John, I'm going to move on. That was the blend. We're going to move on very swiftly to what is at the moment the surprise for everyone, which is a special single malt 2015, 59.5% alcohol, 5-year-old single malt, which, see, to be honest, that's a lot of alcohol. And it's and for those out there, if you need to be adding water, go ahead. Now I'm going to make that up for myself because I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of cask strength whiskies, and and it's good that we drink them.
Same, Paul.
Give me 1 second. I have to give John some. It's not fair. It would be unfair of me not to give him any. But listen, I just think this is nice, and it's what, fair play to you guys. When we talked about McConnell's coming on, we've talked about you guys coming on and presenting this year at the festival. It really is about the branding, but it's also about the liquid. The liquid is a very important part of this specifically. Do you know what I mean? If this is something in your locker, John, if this is something in your locker, I think people are going to be mightily impressed that this is in the locker. You know what I mean? And it's going to be coming out, in years to come as special casks, if I'm right.
Yeah.
Well, coming out of Belfast.
Yeah. So John has a question: Is this going to be coming out of Belfast at some point? Is this the idea?
I know it isn't now, but
Yeah.
No,
so the moment,
we haven't made that call yet. We will be releasing other whiskies, single malt whiskies in the future.
good. Good.
This particular single malt is a component part of the blend, so it probably will not come out as a straight single malt, single cask or anything like that. We will, as we produce our own whiskies in the distillery, release. But for now, this is a component. So
I think
it's a big component of the brand, but it won't be on its own.
Good. Okay, no, that's good. I think Jarlath's saying a couple of things. Can one of my admins just quickly pick up Brian Giffen that he needs his password? He needs a new password. So can one of the admins pick that up? He's in the chat there. But okay, so Jarlath Watson's picking up here. Great bourbon cask influence, citrus fruit, honey nut, vanilla, lovely. It is indeed. I mean, Jarlath, if I was going to actually talk about the whiskey at this point in time, I would have said all that, which is really, you've just done it for me. But it's, you know what?
Can we get Jarlath on the audio? Because he would be great on this.
He does. But, I'm wondering whether or not there's a conflict of his interest. But there shouldn't be. But there shouldn't be. If we can get Jarlath on his microphone, I think we can. If one of the admins can pick him up, then I don't mind Jarlath coming in and having a yarn.
Me either. I think Jarlath is one of those guys who just loves whiskey, loves Belfast.
He does. And do you know what?
Inside out.
It's too funny, right? It genuinely is too funny because he said the other day, and look, Jarlath, fair play to him, works for works very hard for Ecklenville. But we did a tasting the other day, and he was like, "It's like this is far better than anything we'll ever have." You know what I mean? Whatever it was, I can't remember. But Jarlath was
not true because they have such good whiskey.
He's just honest. He's honest. He's honest. You know what I mean? I like that.
I was lucky enough to meet Jarlath. The first time I met Jarlath was in Canada last year, and he just has an incredible knowledge of whiskey, and he's just a really good egg around what's real about whiskey in Northern Ireland. So if you can get him on, it would be great because he's just got so much to say.
No, can I check? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, Keith. Not a problem.
Oh, that's great. I've been here for the last 10 minutes waiting for you to say something.
Keith, I'm so sorry. Keith, you talk. Listen, Keith, you talk away.
I'm having great fun listening to you. As more whiskey samples goes down, Paul, you are getting so much funnier.
Oh, man, thank you very much. I don't know if it's that good. I tell you what, Keith, why don't you listen? I know we can't see your face, but Keith, you introduce yourself. You talk about what you do, what you're about for the company, what you're about for the brand. And listen, I need to just text someone who's trying to get a password in here, and then look, you can just see my face, but you can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. Obviously, I'm working with John. He brought me in early at the start of the year to help launch McConnell's back into the Irish market and a few of the other markets. So we've been working closely since obviously the launch night that you spoke of earlier, and obviously the infamous pub crawl. And we've launched in Belfast and we've launched down south here now as well. And as more markets come on, we're going to keep doing it. But back to some of your points that you brought up over the last few minutes, and what John has mentioned as well is that it was very important for us not to mess around with the history of this brand. It's a very iconic brand. There wasn't maybe not a lot of people that will remember it from drinking it, because there's not too many bottles from the original whiskey around. I think the lads in the friend of hand have one bottle in there, which we did ask kind of jokingly, would he be willing to sell it?
That was a no. That was a negative.
That was a very big no. Fair play to him.
He's got his principles.
Yeah, but like again, we're not coming back and like with some of the jobs that I do with McConnell's. A lot of it's kind of brand ambassador work, brand management work, but one of the things is social media work. And I guess like a lot of the guys that you've been mentioning in Northern Ireland, lads from Copeland and the lads in Boatyard and Ecklenville and Clone will all know that there's a lot of trolls out there online. And one guy tried to rip us apart about the fact that we brought out a blend instead of a 5-year-old pot still to what the original whiskey was. But like, obviously, we're not shying away from the fact that it's not a pot still. It's a blend, because if you look at the whiskey drinker of today compared to back when McConnell's was doing its thing back in the early 1900s, the whiskey drinkers are looking for those easier whiskey drinks. There's a lot more women drinking it. There's a lot more younger people drinking whiskey now. So when we were bringing a whiskey back into the market, we decided that a blend would be the right choice to start off with. And obviously the big exciting thing for us is that we're bringing this whiskey back to the city of Belfast, and in time there will be a unbelievable distillery and visitor centre going back into Belfast, and then we can start looking at producing maybe some of the whiskey that was produced before in the past. But we, at the moment, we are the kind of the key holders, the gatekeepers. This brand will be passed on to someone else 100 years down the line, and we just have to do our part to reintroduce this whiskey back into the, as you said, the ever expanding Northern Irish whiskey market, which is just absolutely fantastic to see at the moment.
I mean, if I can, without punching people, without really pulling punches too much, what I have to say is when a company or when a distillery or a company who wants to have a distillery take on an old brand, it's important that they have that that foresight to think about what does this brand look like now going forward. It's not about maybe the past. It's not about that. I don't believe that taking something from the past and pretending to own its history is important. Whenever I've looked at brands and I think brands going forward, and I have something quite close to my heart, personal, that my lads are playing in a game of football tonight. If I can just mention my football team, that sure, it's my platform. My football team are playing tonight. They're Belfast Celtic. Now, Belfast Celtic existed 70 years ago, and it came to an end in 1949. Now, that brand, Belfast Celtic, has not been used since then. And what we said was, our club changed its name to Belfast Celtic, but the biggest thing that we said, and we make it quite clear, is it's not about Belfast Celtic of then. It's about Belfast Celtic of now going forward.
Yeah.
And the future. What does the inspiration of Belfast Celtic mean to someone who wants to play football in West Belfast? What does it mean? And it should give inspiration and aspiration, And I think that it's the same with whiskey brands. Let's not rely too heavily on the past. Let's think of the future. And fair play to the lads at Eccleville with Dunvilles, because they've done that. They've pushed it to, and I'm sure that's got legs and it will go elsewhere. And if McConnell's can do the same and have a distillery here in Belfast and produce great whiskey, that's great, because there's a renaissance of the types of whiskey that people want to drink from the past. We're doing 2 pre-1970s tastings, and people are jumping out their seats to try and taste that liquid because it's what we want to taste. But at the same time, those mash bills, we've got guys who are smart enough to recreate them, to recreate the mash bills, to recreate the processes, to try and hark back to that. But we've gone so far, technology has taken us to a point where, pot stills are pot stills like as we know them just now. They're not pot stills like we used to know them. Mm. And our malts are very, very refined and very, very clean and crisp. And taking it back and stripping it back and making double, distilled malts, or making, pot stills with different mash bills, well, that's actually the probably the future. It's maybe harking back to that. So to use the brand, to get the brand from before and market it as what it was, which was, a massive brand within Belfast and the world then because of that's a great starting point. But let's, and I'm loving what I'm hearing from both yourself and John. Now, Keith, I'm going to try and wrap it up. And what I want to say is thank you so much for the two of you. The input has been great. And I hope McConnell's has got the type of exposure it wants. We're going to move into this part of this tasting where we've got some guys. Say some guys. We've got a duo who are going to give us some entertainment for the next hour. They're going to entertain us for the next hour. They're going to use the whiskey. They're going to use the whiskey in cocktails. We're going to have a bit of fun. But again, I'm not going to be part of that. I don't think they might invite me into the room, so I'm going to be. It's going to literally be live streamed from their TV studio. But what we're going to be, what I want to say is, I want to say thank you very much to Keith and John for coming on. Genuinely do mean that. Thank you.
Had a good time.
Good, and I'm glad you've had fun. And I'm glad. Look, I can tell. I'm just reading all these comments. There's been a lot of comments coming through in this tasting, which has been very important. And I'm glad that we've got Ella from Connacht's now asking for some liquid there. That's good. But you know, I want to say because I probably won't get the chance to say it during the tasting, but we've got again, so Wayne from Papa's Mineral Code who are supporting McConnell's here, and also number 7 down in Newry for creating a cocktail for us. So listen, thanks very much, lads. I'm going to let the IT guys now, the admin guys now, sort that out. But thanks very much.
That was great fun.
Good.
Well, cheers. See you again soon.
Great,
John. Cheers. I think I'm going to just turn myself off. So hopefully those guys work that out. Okay. Should I, Robert? Should I turn myself off?
Reflect the system.